standing at the border of what we used to know. 5 points in the darkness make a different kind of show. They say we're better together, but what do they know when the stars align differently down here below? And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Remember all the stories that your granddad told about a republic that wouldn't be controlled. Now the suits in the city say we've all been sold, but there's a fire burning that just won't get old. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. They draw their lines on paper, we draw ours in the sand. Some dreams are getting closer, while some don't understand. Don't understand. The highways stretch forever toward a setting sun, where cattle graze on memories of battles won. They say unity's the answer, but maybe we're done with playing by the rules of the chosen ones. Oh, maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Our own sky. Our own sky.
That was nice. Anyway, hi everyone. I am woefully undercaffeinated, as you can tell, and so I'm glad taking this break, and we can have our. Seems like almost every other week now. That, you know, we've had since the move to Thursday. A bunch of holidays are falling on Thursday, and so we're not hitting it every week toward the tail end of the year here, but we're here nonetheless right now. And I'm very glad for it. So, without further ado, let's get started. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. And this is Late Night Coffee Talk. This is that time of the week where I take a break from working on Texas independence to come in here for yet another cup of the Go Juice, and fire up the camera, and take your questions live. And it's going to be, you know, I would say moderate to lower volume of questions this week. So either you guys are content, satisfied, don't have anything you want to talk about, and just want to let me go on whatever ranty soapbox I find myself, or you will start letting them trickle in. If you have questions, then you need to pay attention, because this is how you submit them. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, be sure to drop your questions in the chat. While you're there, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you can get notified when we are doing this. And let me ask you for one more favor too, because we're doing some testing to see what's going on with the YouTube algorithm now. But while you're on the video, don't just chat. If you wouldn't mind, go down and just drop a comment. That really helps us get more visibility to people, even people that are subscribed to our channel that don't see our content. So be sure to go down there and drop a comment as well. And of course, as always, super chats are active, and always any contribution is welcome. If you are watching on X, just drop your question in the chat there on the video. If you're watching on Facebook, be sure to like and share, and drop your question in the comments on the video. And I don't know if we're on Rumble tonight or not. I'm seeing this little indicator light over here telling me that for some reason Rumble is not accepting our stream. So I don't know. I don't have time to mess with it. So if you are seeing this on Rumble, just sound off in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. If not, and you're watching this on playback, then sorry, not our fault. We're blasting 5x5 everywhere else, so it's a Rumble thing. All right, let me get some more of this coffee. Like I said, I think I'm gonna need it. All right, so oh yeah, and I forgot, if you don't want to ask your question in those places, you can always do what's in the crawler at the bottom. You'll see it. You could send your questions to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. And yes, before I get the hate mail and the comments, I called it a crawler again. It is a ticker. I know that there is a difference, but sometimes the terminology gets confused. So, but for those of you that are getting on me about mistakenly calling that a crawler instead of a ticker, feel free to get back to me when you actually understand the difference between the terms nation, state, and country. Then we can have a conversation. Ooh, that sounded salty. That sounded like maybe pitching with a little bit of pepper tonight. You would not be wrong. All right, so it has been a really interesting week. Hope you guys had a really great Thanksgiving. Got to have a lot of great food, great times. Got to have some great conversations. It's always a really, really good time. Oh, by the way, and thank you for those of you who sent me birthday wishes. My birthday was that Monday of that week. And thank you all for your birthday greetings. It was much appreciated. But again, hope you had a great Thanksgiving with friends, family, found family, whoever it was, or just by yourself. Giving thanks does not require a group or a meal. It just requires a moment of your time to show a little bit of gratitude. And I think I laid this out for you guys the last time we were together, which is I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for each and every one of you. I'm just really, really thankful for you guys. All right. Look, guys, I'm not gonna kind of, pussyfoot around this thing. Right. Karen and I had to start off the week by we lost one of our pets, and any of you that are pet owners out there, you understand that kind of screws up your week, kind of screws up your month sometimes. And so I may seem a little bit edgier than usual, but apparently some of you guys like that. But anyway, not been an easy week for Karen and I, but yet we're here because I have been working like a madman to get a bunch of stuff checked off of my list. Some of you may have seen the post that I made on TNM Social, where I have got these long gestating projects, mostly book projects that are on my checklist. Things that, books that I've been asked to write, one that I'm contractually bound to write, but the rest of them typically kind of spurred on by things that you guys have asked for. And one of those, which was a personal passion project of mine that actually promised the late, great David Thomas Roberts over at Defiance Press, that I would get done about, I don't know, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. Promised him that would be the next one in the queue. And that one has been sent off to the publisher. That one is a really, I channeled all of my disgust and angst and anger toward the Supreme Court case of Texas versus White, because I just get sick and tired of hearing it. And that book was about 80%, 85%. Got it done, got it sent off to the publisher, boom shakalaka, done, right? And then there is another one that is in right just past first draft stage, being edited right now, called Being Texian, one that had been asked for a lot, which is, what does it mean? What does it mean to be a Texian? Why do we call ourselves that? And, how do we think, how should we kind of think and behave, and what is our worldview? And because I would notice for quite some time, there was this major incongruence with the way that, they're kind of these people in the TNM, in, the entire TEXIT movement, that just, they have this sort of mentality that is very reflective of what we saw, not just in the founding generation of Texas, but also consistent with successful independence movements around the world. And so, many don't know that our mission and our principles were kind of distilled down from all those lessons, but very few people enter the organization really kind of focusing on that. They focus on the injury du jour, and don't think about really how to frame the situation, what the perspective should be. If you want to actually get independence, right? I mean, if you just want to go out there and shake your fist at the sky, I can tell you how to do that. It doesn't take a book. It takes a cartoon illustration to show you how to do that. But anyway, that book had been really about 8 years in the making. And so that one's next. And so I put a poll on TNM Social. If you guys have seen my post, I'm letting you choose from the 3 options remaining which one you want the most. And I will tell you, the book titled "America is Not a Nation" is blowing everything else out. So go over there, have your say. Would love to have your feedback, because as soon as the editing is done with this Being Texian, then I go into finishing up whatever that next one is. And so you got probably about 2 or 3 days to make your voice heard. But just go over to TNM Social, pull up the feed, go to my profile. You'll see where I asked the question. I did not do it as a poll, but I did do it in such a way that you can answer conclusively in the comments and explain your why. And I'm taking all of that into account. And so far, the America is Not a Nation folks are winning. So that is super good news. Wow. Okay. I gotta get to questions, right? All right. Let's go to email first. I'll take the chat one next. I'm excited about that one. That's going to be fun. Oh, guys, you haven't, before I do that, you haven't heard, maybe some of you have you not heard about our new sponsor? Have you not heard about that? We don't get those very much, but I think I need to play an ad for our brand new sponsor.
What if this time They listen. Introducing Hopium. Notes of faded campaign flyers, the delicate musk of thoughts and prayers. Close your eyes. Inhale deeply. Ignore everything. Hopium, the official fragrance of wait until 2028.
For the purposes of YouTube not flagging this video, that is not actually a sponsor. That is satire. But it's kind of true, isn't it? All right, let's get down to the questions. All right, this is from John. John says, recent polling in the race for Cornyn Senate seat seems to show Texas voters have opened their eyes to the reality of his performance and are ready for a change. Can we have any hopes this same change will occur in regard to Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick? There are current primary challengers to both, but can they overcome the huge disparity in name recognition and campaign finances? Let's go win. Okay. It's a really good question. Okay. So I will say this. Let me just give you the disclaimer ahead of time. Okay. We have Texas First Pledge signers in both of those races. So I'm not going to answer it, but I'm not going to answer it through that lens. You want kind of the straight talk, and I'm about to give it to you. John Cornyn is, I mean, I don't want to call the Cornyn race, I don't want to call it an aberration, right? But the guy has aged like milk, you know. I mean, when it comes to where he is and where the electorate is. And I mean, if I were to describe the electorate, I did to this friend of mine in the UK the other day, if I were to describe the mood of the electorate right now, it seems to be torches and pitchforks, at least on one end. On the other end, it is a lot of discouragement, right? I mean, there are a lot of people discouraged. The reality of it is, and here is the disclaimer, there is no such thing as a totally accurate political prognostication, right? You can look at things, you can look at history, you can look at trajectory, and you know, you're 5 minutes away from something happening that absolutely changes that. And I just go back to, you know, the Clayton Williams, the Ann Richards Clayton Williams race, right? Where, I mean, Clayton Williams was on track to, I mean, just absolutely hammer Ann Richards. And he let his mouth write a bunch of checks that his butt couldn't cash. He said some things, and you know, as Texans are apt to do, analogies that may seem comical on the surface, but ultimately wind up, you know, being fair to partly offensive, right? And I don't think his intent was offensive. I mean, I kind of understood what he did, but the electorate did not. And I mean, you want to talk about, I mean, it gave Ann Richards all the fodder she needed to go say that the guy was born with a silver foot in his mouth, right? I mean, she was able to just beat the living crap out of this guy. And so, you know, anything can happen. You know, you're 5 minutes away from a, you know, somebody pulling the switch and the train shoving over to a different track or derailing altogether. So that being said, you never know when lightning is going to strike. You never know when one of these insurgent candidates is going to be on the ballot and something happens and, you know, suddenly all conventional wisdom is upended. I've seen millions of dollars poured into these pollsters and pundits and all these other guys, these consultants, that could be completely wrong. I mean, you know, think about all the money Hillary Clinton spent to lose that race that she was in, right? And just how much everything on the surface was tracking for her to win. You know, of course, the mainstream media was in her corner. But, you know, the bottom line here is simply this. I don't think you can make a connection to what's happening with Cornyn and extrapolate from there to any of these other races. You know, you go look at the race against John Cornyn, and it is two exceedingly well-funded candidates that have extensive campaign experience. that have the ability to raise buku dollars. I mean, you know, it's the reality of it, that have got name ID. You know, Cornyn's challengers have got significant name ID. Ken Paxton has basically spent his entire duration as the Attorney General being in the media challenging the federal government. And John Cornyn has become the living example, the living embodiment of a Quisling, right? A Vichy candidate, a Vichy senator, right? He's not representing Texas in Washington, D.C. He's putting a Texas seal of approval on what's happening in Washington, D.C., federal dysfunction and all that. And so, you know, but that being said, I don't know that you can draw any kind of extension from what's happening in that race to what's going on with Abbott and with Dan Patrick. I mean, both of those guys absolutely in the primaries deserve massive primary challenges. But, you know, the thing is, when you go up against these guys, this is the voice of experience speaking here. You cannot jump in late. You have got to be laying the groundwork for it years in advance. You've got to come in with massive boatloads of campaign cash, or at a minimum, the ability to raise it. And that's just the reality. I'm not telling you that that's the right way. I'm not telling you that's the way it should be. I hate it that it's that way. But that is the reality of it, you know. So you have this crazy nonsense going on right now. I mean, just a good example, just the other day, you know, Donald Trump comes out and he's got Ted Cruz on his flank and he's got Michael Dell in the bag on this thing, and they're like, we're going to start up these $1,000 accounts for all newborns. Okay, with what money? Because I thought we were $38 trillion in debt. Well, excuse me. I thought the federal government was $38 trillion in debt. Where's that money coming from, right? And why is it okay to take that money from taxpayers and intentionally redistribute it that way? That's redistributed wealth. And as someone historically famous said, socialism is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, the gospel of envy, right? Its inherent virtue is the equal sharing of misery, right? That is not my words. That's a historically relevant figure, okay? So, you know, how is that not viewed as socialism? Well, you know, Dan Patrick decides to go full on Karl Marx, you know, Joseph Stalin, Vladimir Lenin, and come out and go, I will see to it that we get legislation to do exactly the same thing in Texas. It's like, wait a minute, guys. You know, and now I see all these guys that are allegedly fiscal conservatives out here hopping on that bandwagon. And I'm like, wait a minute. When, you know, I heard you were red pilled, but I didn't know the red meant communist red, right? All of this, and they go, well, you know, this is a very nationalist thing to do. Is it? Is it really? Is driving your nation into bankruptcy or driving your nation state into bankruptcy, is that really the safest course of action? And suddenly, you know, you got Comrade Dan over here wanting to be, you know, brown noser in chief, echoing these plans like this. And it's like, wait a minute, we can't get, you know, we get property tax relief to the point some people get nothing, some people get $4, you know, some people might get $100. I mean, you know, relief, but we still can't get a viable plan out of these guys after nearly 2 decades for the elimination of property tax that would put more money into our pockets, right? So that we could do things like, oh, I don't know, maybe start a $1,000 account for our own kids and invest it the way that we want to. But instead, we're getting this crap from the federal government. We're getting AAA ball club nonsense from, you know, the Supreme Soviet down there in Austin. And it's just like, you know, come on, guys. But yet, you know, this is, John, I think part and parcel of the challenge is these guys are going to go in. They are so well funded and they are supported by people that are so, I mean, you can't say that they're ideologically aligned, right? Because if you were to strip their face off and just put this out there and just say, okay, guys, here's the deal. You know, you just say fill in the blank Democrat is going to be running for governor of Texas, and here's their platform. Their platform is they want to take $1,000 of your money and put it into accounts for every newborn. They would look at you and they would go, you know, who is this Democrat? Is it Chairman Mao? I mean, right? But suddenly, because it's coming out on a Greg Abbott mailer or a Dan Patrick social media account, suddenly it's like these guys can't do any wrong. And it's just like, guys, you know, your ship has no wheel and it has no rudder, right? I mean, it's just sort of the kind of the way the things are right now. I don't know that anything in particular is going to change. Look, we're late in the game, right? You got 4 days left. I mean, today's already over, right? So you got the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So 4 days. You got 4 days of the filing window left. And there have been no additional primary challengers jump out there to say, you know what, guys, you know, I'm rolling into this thing with a $10 million war chest. I will self-fund. I will do it. It's not happening, right? So, you know, the candidates that are running against them are going to have to they're going to have to run insurgent campaigns. And as they run insurgent campaigns, it's, you know, they're going to be much like I was, drug all over Hell's Half Acre to go speak to, you know, Joe Bob Republican Club in, you know, Bug Tussle County. And they're going to give you 15 seconds that you had to drive 4 hours to get there. And 15 seconds is not an exaggeration. If you're new, that's not an exaggeration. It literally happened to me. You know, had to pay for a table, had to drive 4 hours to get there, and got 15 seconds, right, to speak. And that was it. So they're going to drive them all over Hell's Half Acre. They're going to ring them out. So they're going to have to be insurgent. They're going to have to be smart. They're going to have to fight guerrilla style. They're going to have to leverage every possible volunteer network. They're going to have an aggressive statewide block walking campaign. They're going to have to, whatever cash they cannot cough up to get on the air, right? Radio, TV, digital ads, they're going to have to get organically, which means they're going to have to be absolutely viral and outrageous across every social media platform. They're going to have to do direct mail. They're going to have to do billboards. I mean, they're going to have to do the things necessary. And let me just tell you, billboards don't win races, right? Billboards can help races, but billboards don't win races. If so, then Candy K. Horn would be our governor right now, right? Because she bought out like all the inventory of billboards across the state last election cycle. And speaking of, if you have never watched the documentary about her, because nobody knew who she was, it's called the Duchess of Kaufman County. You should go watch it. And you'll see kind of what we're dealing with in politics here in Texas. But you know, so to your final question, John, they're current primary challengers to both, but can they overcome the huge disparity in name recognition and campaign finances? The answer is always a yes. It can, but the reality of it is you know, you have to be an insurgent. You have to take every opportunity. There's always a way to win, right? And they will do everything they can to keep you from winning. There's always some way to win. I mean, well, I take that back. There are some no-win scenarios. But that being said, you know, will it happen? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know because I haven't really talked to these candidates. I don't know what their campaign plans look like on paper. I know the clients that I deal with in my personal business that are in this space. You know, I know what those campaigns look like, and I know what successful campaigns look like, and so I can kind of spot it. So maybe I need to have some conversations with these guys. I don't know, but can it be overcome? Sure, it can. You know, but we're dealing, you know, that what you're asking is a question of possibility. And I think the question you should be asking is the probability. But it was your question to ask. So boom, shakalaka. Anyway, thank you for that. Let's get over here to the questions. Oh, yeah. For those of you joining us late, if you have questions, drop them in the YouTube chat, in the comments on Facebook, in the chat on X, or you can email them to coffeetalk@vtnm.org. Okay. Let's take another email one real quick. Eric says, "Where's the QR code for supporting TNM?" That is a great question. Let me find it for you, buddy. Hang on. He's asking about this, which is if you'd like to help support the work of the Texas Nationalist movement, and you're watching this on like some device that is not your phone, take a picture of. There it is. That QR code right there. Snap that and head over there, and that'll take you to our donation page. And so I know that Eric is getting ready to do that. So Eric, thank you for that. And I will leave that up for others who want to do so. Thank you for reminding me. I told you I was going to be a little off my game tonight. So please forgive me. Okay. Here's the other question. What ramifications from the Supreme Court ruling on redistricting regarding our sovereignty and the tentacles Washington seems to further entwine around Texans? Yeah. In case you guys have not heard, the Supreme Court issued a stay on the ruling from the lower court that basically stayed, would they stay the stay, I guess, that kept Texas from using the new congressional maps. Look, I'll just be straight up about this whole redistricting thing. At a fundamental level, I somewhat agree with it. I don't believe in racial gerrymandering in any shape, form, or fashion. I had to deal with this when I ran for state representative. The maps got contested back in 2012. The primary got pushed from March all the way to the end of May. It was postponed twice over the maps. And a lot of it was because Texas was still under Voting Rights Act pre-clearance, which basically said that any state that had any history with Jim Crow laws whatsoever had to have their electoral maps okayed by the federal government. So we basically had to go mother may I for redistricting every single 10 years, right, since the Voting Rights Act and Texas was put under pre-clearance. So, I think the thing is nonsense. I have a district literally across the street, a Texas House district that is a racially gerrymandered Texas House district, not a congressional district, but it's racially gerrymandered. I've heard discussions about that during the last two redistricting efforts, where they effectively talk about, look, we have to have this majority minority district here or minority coalition districts or blah, blah, blah. So I don't believe in any of that. So I fundamentally believe in that premise under which these maps and this redistricting was undertaken. However, and this is how you could sniff out that the whole thing is BS. They just did the congressional maps. If they were utilizing that criteria from the federal government, right, the new guidance that said no racial gerrymandering. Well, if they did the maps under the old VRA kind of rules where they got to look out for these sorts of things, that means that not just the congressional maps, but the Texas House maps and the Texas Senate maps were also drawn that way. Why didn't they redistrict all three? Right? If that is really at the heart of their problem, then why didn't they do all three? Because that's exactly what they should have done if they're telling the truth, which they don't tell the truth. These guys don't tell the truth. They couldn't find the truth with a hunting dog and a Ouija board, right? It's all about political convenience. So it's like, we got this memo from Pam Bondi, and Pam Bondi says we're going to challenge your maps. And so we had to go redraw one set of them just for the ones that are going to affect the federal level during the midterms. It's all bull crap. And what you got is this federal nonsense. I mean, you saw it, right? I mean, there's an article about it. We talked about this on a previous coffee talk, where you had the SREC meeting to censure these guys, to take up these county censures and to basically impose penalties on censured state reps and politicians and everything else. And everything was rocking along, and you kind of thought, well, maybe something's going to happen till they got a phone call from the White House saying you can't knock these people out of the boat. We're not going to support you. We'll see to it that you drown in debt and you don't get any money. And I know there was some internal deliberation and debate about it, but ultimately the body folded like Superman on laundry day, right? So this is kind of the situation that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a legislature that will, under the guise of doing something the right way, will literally take that opportunity to not do the right. I mean, they'll go out of their way. But this is indicative of our government at the state level, right? The legislature, as it is composed right now, the lieutenant governor and the governor. And yeah, I'm going all out on all of them tonight, right? They had 3 sets of maps that, if what they said was correct, right? If you take them at their word, we're going to redraw these districts because we don't believe in racial gerrymandering. And all 3 of those maps were drawn initially with racial gerrymandering in mind. Then what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that in their minds, a 33% is a good enough grade to get by. They're all Peter in Office Space. When he's talking to the Bobs, the consultants that have come in to Initech, and he goes through what his day looks like. He goes, look, guys, I'm just going to be honest. I basically just do enough not to get fired. And that's kind of what it is. These guys do 33% of what they say they're going to do. The rest of it is not just not doing it. They just do the complete opposite. And then what they do is they hope that they can bury it like a cat covering crap in a sandbox with a bunch of money and a bunch of mailers convincing the electorate that, what they did didn't really actually happen. The way that it went down didn't go down. They gaslight. I mean, the amount of money they spend to gaslight the Texas voters into believing that they're good guys, that they did what they were elected to do. They're going out right now to I knew these maps were going to stand. They stand up like they're so righteous, right? Look, we struck a blow, for freedom and for Trump, and we're going to keep the Congress red, and we gave them 5 more Republican seats. It's like you gave a crap at the federal level about this, but you didn't bother to look at the House districts or the Senate districts. I mean, what a joke. And the sad part is that a bunch of our friends and neighbors and countrymen are going to swallow this crap, hook, line, and sinker. They're going to swallow it, and we're going to have to listen to this propaganda, this crap, and we can't find opportunities. I mean, you slung 3 hardcore candidates at Greg Abbott in the last primaries, and I mean, it didn't even force him to a runoff. Right? Abbott didn't have to spend a dime other than what he was already going to spend. Right? And yet here we are, because he can go and get $12 million in campaign cash infusions from Connecticut. This is one of the reasons we say, look, we got to end this practice of campaign contributions from outside of Texas, because it's crap like that allows them the money to come in and gaslight our communities. It's absolutely insane to me. Absolutely insane. So, what are the ramifications? The ramifications are, it's going to be the same thing that we're always dealing with, Eric. It's the same thing that we're always dealing with. We spent a lot of time and energy fighting against Abbott and talking crap on what he's doing. And, we do have to give credit where credit's due sometimes. But, we try to expose all those things. But at the end of the day, the war is not just trying to go out there and just shout into the ether, toward these policies in the legislature. I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing here. Sometimes it feels like, right? Hopefully I'm educating, framing, you can call it whatever. But ultimately the war is won in the living rooms of our communities. I mean, you cannot imagine how many people out there will lie to your face, tell you that they are a voter. They're not even registered, or they will tell you that they voted in such and such primary, or do what, they will say these things, and you go look at their voting history, which is public record, right? You could go right now to the Secretary of State's website and go order the voter rolls. You can go do it, right? You can't see who they voted for, right? Obviously not, but you can see if they voted or not. You got people that are registered that have never voted, that will tell you straight to your face, well, I voted for so-and-so, and said, no, you didn't, right? So, look, the war is won in the hearts and minds and the behaviors of our own people. right? Of the people in our households and our neighbors next door and the people in our community. That's where the battle is. And if you're out there and you think, well, wait a minute, you know, it sounds like you're being overly critical. You're being harsh. Well, maybe I am. Could be I just finished the draft of the Being Texian book, right? It has stirred up many things in my mind, and has helped me understand and explain some of the frustration that I have. But it also gives me a tremendous amount of hope. We'll talk about that at some other point. But that being said, if all political power is inherent in the people, then we have to go win the people. And for them to be winnable, they have to be people that can be won. And the one thing they got to be is they got to build up some sort of mental resilience against this gaslighting, because too many of them are falling for it. Some of you are going to argue that I don't need any more coffee. I believe that. But I drink it nonetheless. Now to the chat. All right, let's do this. Big thank you to Michael Andrus for your $9.99 super chat. But thank you so much. He says still can't afford it, but someone needs to get things started. And thank you for that. Look, I understand times are super tight for people right now, super tight. And so, you know, when folks like you make a $5 or $10 or $25 contribution, man, I know what that means to a lot of people right now. And it means a lot to us that you're taking the opportunity to make that contribution, Michael. So thank you so much for that. All right. Look, Eric Riddle, Kara is making a statement for you. She says, Eric Riddle, thank you so much for your generous contribution you made through the direct link. You truly exemplify what it means being Texian. Thank you again. Yes, thank you. We don't have anything that, like, if you make a contribution over there on that it shows up here, right? I don't know. I can barely keep up with hitting all these buttons, right? But Kara obviously saw it. So thank you for that, Eric. It's much appreciated. All right, this from Liberty Bell. Liberty Bell says, I firmly believe in TEXIT. I believe it will eventually become a necessity to save our state. Not eventually. It's a necessity right now. To save Texas, independence is not just an inevitability. It is, but it's a necessity. Look, the sense of urgency should be greater than it's ever been for a whole multitude of reasons, right? But anyway, thank you for your comment, Liberty Bell. All right. This is from Brian. Brian says, good evening, Mr. President. That is so formal. But thank you. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We did. What position would the movement take regarding the possibility of Texas territorial expansion, specifically to open negotiations for the annexation of Eddy and Lee counties in southeast New Mexico? This is a very good question. And I'm going to tell you, it is the simplicity of it does not do justice to the complexity of it. Okay. So let me see the best way to break this down. So let me analogize this for everybody, or not analogize. Let me just kind of lay out some fact patterns. Okay. So many of you guys have heard of the Greater Idaho movement, right? Where you got a bunch of counties in Oregon that want to leave and join Idaho, right? And those counties exist and they're all voting and they want to go join Idaho because Idaho is more conservative than Oregon, you know, the western half of Oregon. So they want to separate. Okay. Additionally, you've got a similar situation happening in Illinois. New York has had for the longest time its own sort of internal secession movements where upstate wants to separate from New York City. You've got, I think, Long Island. I think there's an article in the Texian Partisan about what's happening on Long Island right now. Obviously, you got the 51st state movements that are taking place in Colorado and California, where they want to divide up. And what you essentially have is you have those as internal split ups, where you have these counties that want to go from one state to the other, which that's a thing that is separate and distinct from, say, what we're doing, or what TEXIT is doing, or what New Hampshire's doing, or the Alaskan Independence Party, or Free Louisiana, which is to take their nation state, lock, stock, and barrel, and assert their independence, right on par with, you know, every other nation in the world. Okay, so it's important that we make those distinctions between what those two movements are. And for the longest time, we get asked about, you know, I'd get interviewed about these things, or get asked by academics about these things, and would always have to kind of paint that picture, help them understand these are very different situations. And here's why they're different situations. Counties really don't have an existence unto themselves, right? They are, at least here in Texas, are defined as administrative subdivisions of the state, right? And there's this whole thing that, you know, I heard back in the 80s and 90s that just turned out to be a bunch of crap, a bunch of paper patriot nonsense about, well, you know, the county is the central theme, and it's, you know, they have all the power. And it's like, guys, this is not, you know, like, this is not, you know, England of the, you know, 1400s, right? That's not what this is, right? Texas is a state. If you want to visualize it in this way, Texas is, take it as a nation state. And then Texas created those counties, right? You can go back, look at the laws. Those counties were created to subdivide administration from the state. Now, granted, the state shoved a tremendous amount of flexibility down there. They have a history of this, shifting a lot of that down when you had the creation of home rule cities and things like that. But ultimately, the counties are creations of the state, at least here. Now, that's not necessarily the case like throughout history, English common law, a lot of those things, right? Historically. But here in Texas, I'm telling you, this is just what the facts are. Not here to debate what the facts are. The facts are the facts, okay? Not here to debate the right or wrong. But this is why your question is quite complex, because essentially what you're talking about, if you were talking about it before independence, it's functionally indistinguishable from the greater Idaho movement, right? And what's happening there, what's happening in Illinois, where you have counties that want to, and those counties need the permission of the state of which they're part to make that happen, right? Because they don't really have an existence outside of being a political and administrative subdivision of that state. But if you're talking about it from the standpoint of, you know, post-independence, well, that's where things get real interesting and make this a more of a complex question than I think it seems to be on the surface. And what it really gets down to is this, is at what level do you believe that independence can flow to, right? This is one of the reasons I've said often it's very important for us to make the distinction that Texas withdrawing from the Union is not actually secession under the modern definition. We are withdrawing our membership from a supranational body, right? It'd be like if the United States withdrew from the UN, or when France withdrew from NATO, right? Those sorts of things. So those terms are very different. They have very different meanings. And as things have evolved and relationships have been created that were very different to what we saw in the 17 and 1800s, these terms have evolved. So, you know, we're advocating for TEXIT. Texas reasserting its status as an independent nation. But a lot of people get secession confused. But if people want to be able to accurately visualize what secession is, what you're talking about would be it. Those counties seceding from New Mexico and then joining something else, right? Joining other self-governing independent nation. So, you know, to your question, I mean, is it possible? Sure. I mean, it's absolutely possible. The probability, I mean, I think, and this is just me personally, I'm not making any political prognostications. I firmly think and believe that Texas reasserting its status as an independent nation will shuffle a lot of things on the current maps. I just think it will. I think a lot of things will change. Some things won't, but I think a lot of the way that the lines are drawn will change. Texas will always be Texas, right? But what the shape of that is by the time all of this is over is going to be quite interesting, because Texas will stand as a kind of a counterpoint to what's going on with the federal government. And I think there are going to be states and portions of states that are going to see that it's good to go it alone, right? They don't need the federal system. They don't want the federal system. And they may assert themselves independently, right? Entire states, if they've got the capability of it. But I would even suggest that some counties are probably, depending on what their population is, probably capable of being independent nations unto themselves. But Texas will leave as Texas. Texas will stay Texas because nobody wants to change their waffle irons, right? And HEB doesn't want to have to make differently shaped Texas-shaped chips. That's a joke. No hate mail, please. Anyway, it's a very interesting question. Is there some possibility? Anything is possible when you have what is effectively the political upheaval that will come as a result of federal dysfunction. I just hope we're the first ones out the door and we get to do it under our own terms. But we all know that an impending federal collapse, all bets are off. Who knows what that's going to look like, what the shape of that will be by the time it's all over with. So it would be interesting to see some of our old territory back in the fold. I would like to go ski. I mean, I don't even ski, but wouldn't it be fun to go ski in Vail, Texas? Just saying. Anyway, thanks for the question, Brian. Let's see what we got over here. Okay. Yeah, you guys are slinging them in the chat now. All right, Calhoun School of Law. I know who you are. Let me coming on here using these fake fancy names. Just kidding. All right. Howdy, partner. Howdy. Does Dallas seem receptive to TEXIT in your experience? I haven't been that far east in a while. I would say, if you're talking about, do we have a concentration of support there? Yes, more than you would probably think. One of the things we do is we heat map supporter registrations to population. So we kind of do a per capita market penetration, if you want to, of support, and we track that on a pretty regular basis. Blows people away to know that Harris County per capita is the highest concentration of support. They think it's going to be in some of the rural areas, and it's not. And of course we have to adjust per capita based off of population. Technically, it's VAP, it's voting age population. Excuse me, and we use an NSV for that one, which is non-suspense voters. So we're looking at actual voters. So that gives us a real good idea. And we track that county by county. So, Harris County oddly has been for years and years and years. Shocks a lot of people to know that Bexar County is number 2. Dallas is pretty high up there, higher than I think most people would think it would be. I can't tell you exactly what number it is right now, but it's up there. But what the weird challenge that we have in the TNM in particular is that even in these areas where we have high concentrations of registered supporters, there is a reluctance, I think, on the part of these folks to get stuck in, to actually help do things. I know Chris Milton worked his tail off up there in Dallas County for the longest time, and just had a tremendous amount of difficulty getting people kind of engaged. And I know we have some of that situation in these larger, like Harris County and Bexar County. Whereas the concentrations of supporters that we have in the rural counties, man, they just, they're ready to charge the gates of hell with a squirt pistol. I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know why that is. We haven't been able to really put our finger on it. It could be geography. It could be, the issue of, social proofing. Maybe the social proofing is not working. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you were to go assemble all the registered TNM supporters in, say, Dallas County in one spot, they would be absolutely blown away. I mean, if you guys could see the maps that I see, which you cannot because privacy policy, but if you could see the maps that I see, some of you literally live down the street from another supporter and you have no idea. You have no idea. There are like 7 in my neighborhood, like where this is. And I don't mean these are people that I deal with on the daily. They're just there. And it's like, it's crazy. And so it's one of the reasons that we're focusing so heavily on organizing in the counties, because we need these people to connect together. The atomization, a phrase, a term that I've used on here more times than you guys probably want to hear. You're probably about to throw up now because you've heard it so much. But the atomization as a concept is a reality. As the regime keeps us atomized, when you have 8 people in this neighborhood that don't know each other, or you have 3 people that live on your street that you don't know about, they keep us isolated. Well, imagine what it does if all of us that are within a stone's throw of each other just start getting together and doing things, right? Just doing Texas nationalism, being Texas nationalists, being Texians. What does that look like? How does that change the face of everything? It's a really, really interesting question. And I'm pretty sure you can imagine what I'm imagining right now, which is it changes everything. If our folks can get over that hump and figure out that you're not alone, that there's tons of you in an area, it doesn't have to be tons. I mean, how great would it feel for you if all of a sudden you realize, hey, look, there are 4 families within a quarter mile of my house, 4 Texas nationalist movement supporting families within a quarter mile of my house. How would that change the dynamic of your personal engagement, right? All of a sudden now you've got people that are thinking just like you, that want to be Texas nationalists, that want to go out there and make Texas an independent nation. It changes everything. And so I can't encourage you guys strongly enough to get stuck in, help David Brunig and his team over there organize at the local level. If you haven't jammed your hand in the air and said, look, I may not be able to lead, but I can help organize, or I can't lead or organize, but I will help participate and support. And you need to do that. You absolutely need to do that. There's the answer to your question. Actually, it was more than what you asked for, but look, you kicked the dog, and no apologies, right? Anyway, thanks for the question, Caleb. I appreciate that. Okay, let's get down to, hey, that came from X. I didn't even realize that until I went to go click off of it. Here's a question. When is Being Texian available? Not yet. Like I said, it's fine. It's editing right now. We're chopping it down. This is another situation like the TEXIT book is. Or was, which is there's going to be about a third of it that's written that's going to have to be left on the cutting room floor because it's too much. If you guys have never written a book, a lot of times what happens is you write, and as you write, you sometimes you're in the groove, you're in the flow, which is rare for me. Okay, so guys, pray for me because this is not an easy thing for me, but you get to chapter 8 and you're writing, and I mean, you're slamming and jamming. You don't realize, well, crap, I talked about that in chapters 2, 3, and 5 already in the same detail. And so you got to go do, and that's kind of where it is right now. I mean, it's like, I think we're at like 100 and some odd thousand words, and I got to get 30K of those chopped out. So anyway, like I said, I think I'm going to be done with that probably 3 or 4 days, and then it goes off to the publisher. I talked to Defiance, and they've got the Texas versus White book. They'll get this one as well, and they said they want the rest of them. So just be on the lookout for that. As I get them done, I get them sent over there, and then we get them in the queue. But these have all been, like I said earlier, long gestating projects that I'm just excited to finally get off of my to-do list. Okay. Okay, here we go. Another question from Liberty Bell, and guys, I'm almost out of time, so I may rapid fire another one after this. How do you feel big oil and gas will help or hinder TEXIT? They rule Texas. Will they allow it? I don't just think, I know that some of them have been quietly and slowly preparing for it. I think that a lot of these massive, these kind of what I would call backbone companies understand what's on the horizon. And even the ones that maybe don't think it's inevitable, think it's enough of a possibility that they are preparing contingencies. And I know this because I have talked to people that have been in those rooms before. And this was many years ago, having those conversations, with those massive corporations. I mean, if you guys haven't, if people were to pay attention, like really just kind of take a step back, just kind of let the curtain fall away for a bit and just start looking at all of the pieces. All of the pieces are moving on the chessboard, right? The writing is on the wall. Everything is moving. But I think people are so conditioned to thinking about independence in such a very narrow way about the referendum. That's where they're fixated. I think oftentimes they miss all of these other things that are all the other pieces that are moving on the chessboard. I think it's, I mean, no harm, no foul. If the referendum is your focus, let the referendum be your focus. I'm glad you've chosen a thing, but understand this is a far more complex and involved process than just the referendum. And when you understand that, and you understand how this is likely to play out, and you understand how other countries gain their independence, not the 10 minutes they got on CNN when it all went down, but I mean, kind of how the whole process played out, it would become evident. That's why I think it's funny when people are critical of what we do, or scoff at the possibility of independence. It just tells me that they don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand how it works, and that's okay. I am totally fine letting our opposition be ignorant. Never interrupt your opponent when they're making a mistake, right? And dismissing Texas independence as an emergent phenomena has effectively allowed us to grow to the point where we are. 15 years ago, I couldn't say that independence was an inevitability. I could say that I believe that we are on the path. I believe that we can make it happen, but there was a tipping point where I looked at it and said that absolutely 100% this will happen. What we dictate is what we're here to do is dictate the time frame and the shape of that independence. Will we make it happen? Will we have a say in how it happens? Or will it be something that is done to us, right? That gets hijacked by the same people that I basically spent the first 30% of this live stream ranting about. Because never underestimate the ability of a politician to jump in front of a parade. There's your warning for tonight. Okay, folks, I am out of time, so that is going to have to do us for tonight. But look, I want to thank you to everyone who did a super chat. Thank you to Eric Riddle who made the donation. And look, still not too late. You want to pop that bad boy right there and make a contribution to help us keep moving the ship of state toward the shores of independence. Then please, by all means, we would appreciate your support. Just I mentioned this earlier. Oh, yeah. You know what? Let me just do this. Let me also thank our channel members. Look at that, guys. You're down there at the bottom on the ticker. See, I almost called it a crawler again. You're on the ticker. Thank you for being channel members on our YouTube channel. But what I got showing up there right now is TNM Social, right? I've already mentioned it. I mentioned at the very beginning of this thing. I mentioned the poll. If you are not on TNM Social, if you don't have the mobile app installed, get over there right now. Get on TNM Social, log in or register, get the mobile app downloaded, and join the conversation. I totally, thoroughly still convinced that we are being artificially suppressed on social media platforms. And so basically, this is the only outlet that guys like us have where we can have honest conversations about Texas being an independent nation and coordinate with each other and communicate with one another. And the more participation, the better off it's going to be. So go do it. If you like, literally, you can even cut me off. You don't have to listen to the rest of the thing. Just go do that. Go download the mobile app. Get on TNM Social right now. And look, if you are here for the first time, right? If you're here for the very first time, or whatever time, right? But you still haven't registered your support for the Texas Nationalist movement. Look, there's no better time than right now. It doesn't cost you a dime. Right? Head over to tnm.me/vote and register your support. You can go, or you can just go right to the main page, tnm.me. I mean, we jam the form on the front page, like right near the top, to make it as easy as possible. But that's your first step in the door, right? Pledge your support. Become, say, look, this is what I want. I want Texas to become a self-governing independent nation. I want to join the movement that's making it happen, or at least have my voice counted along with theirs. Also, look, if I did not get to your question tonight and you have questions about TEXIT, head over to texitnow.org. It is the most complete FAQ on issues related to TEXIT and Texas becoming an independent nation. It's all the process stuff, all the questions that everyone always asks. Head over to texitnow.org. Additionally, look, Christmas shopping, all kidding aside from the funny perfume ad earlier, if you're looking for Christmas gifts for someone and you want something very Texian themed, head over to the TexianStore.com. There it is, TexianStore.com. Head over to Texian Store. Pick up a gift. You got to hurry up, though, because, the closer we get, and I will tell you, you want to get in early because I think the shipping services are already having problems. Yes. Let's not forget this one too, right? If you're not getting your news at the Texian Partisan, then you need to start, right? That is not only the official news outlet for the TNMs. We're posting all of our news now, but it is growing to become this wonderful independent news outlet of all things Texian related, right? I mean, it's the one online news publication that literally believes in Texas first and Texas forever, without all the other hedging and equivocation that you get from some of these other independent media outlets. So be sure to check it out, TexianPartisan.com. All right, friends. With that, I will see you next week, right? We're going to do the thing next week. We have no holidays next week, nothing, right? So I think we're on track. So I will see you next week. Be here, bring other people with you. Hey, invite some of those people that live in your neighborhood that I talked about over, and you guys sit around the living room and make fun of the fat bald guy on the live stream, right? Ask me questions. Turn it into a party. See, I got thick skin, man. I don't care. See, it's thick skin, right? All right. That being said, friends, I'm going to leave you with the words that I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.